This question tells us to identify the dimensions of both prisms and record the dimensions in the table below. Okay, I can see this composite figure was split into prism 1 on the top. So this is prism 1. And then prism 2 on the bottom. I can also see in the table, they already listed out the length, width, and height of the bottom prism. They saw that the length was 15, that the width was 12, and the height was 3. All of these dimensions were easily labeled. Now, we have to solve for the dimensions on prism 1. You're going to see in prism 1, they're not as easily labeled. We don't have the length directly labeled. We don't have the width directly labeled, and the height isn't directly labeled. So we're going to have to use the numbers for the whole figure and for the bottom figure prism to help us solve for the dimensions in the top prism. So I want you looking for how we use that throughout this model. Here we go. Let's start with length. If we're finding length of the top prism, we can see length is here, here, and here. But none of these are labeled. Okay? So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to use the lengths mentioned elsewhere, like right here, 15 millimeters and 2 millimeters, to solve for the missing length in prism 1. Now, 15 millimeters, this length right here, is represented from here all the way to over here. This is the longest part of our figure, so this is what we're going to call the total length. Our total is 15. Now, we have a part of that total back here as 2 millimeters. So this is saying that from here to here, this section from here to here is 2 millimeters. That is a part of the total. So if this section right here is 2 millimeters, then that means this leftover section is 13. Because 13 plus 2 equals our total of 15. So our missing length for the top prism was 13 millimeters. Let's now ahead and go look for the width. Oops. All right, I know width is going to be found for front to back. So if I'm looking from front to back, I don't see that the width is labeled here or over here, and it's not labeled here. This 2 is not referring to the width. That 2 is representing the length right here. So we can't call that a width. Okay, so our width for the top prism wasn't labeled. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the widths of the bottom prism to help us figure out the width of the top prism. I can see that the width of the bottom prism was 12 millimeters. I can also see that the bottom prism has the same width as the top prism because those two prisms were even Steven. See? This side is the same width as the bottom side. Okay, there's no overlap. So they have the same width, therefore the width of the top prism is also 12 millimeters. The last part we have to find is the height. So what we're going to do is we're going to identify all the heights of our top prism. I can see that the height is here. I'm going to pick a different color. It stands out a little bit more. Let's do green. Okay, I can see the height is from here to here for the top prism. So from here to here. Okay, it's also over here from top to bottom and back here from top to bottom. But none of those are labeled. Now, I do see this 15 millimeters off to the left, but this 15 millimeters isn't talking about the height of just the top prism. It's talking about the height of the top prism and the bottom prism combined. So it's saying top plus bottom equaled 15. Well, if we know the top plus the top height plus the bottom height equals 15, then we can figure out what the top height is. All we have to do is look for the bottom height. Well, you can see the bottom height was 3. So if the bottom height was 3, or write that in black, if the bottom height was 3, and then we add that to the top height, that should equal 15. I'm going to think, 3 plus what equals 15? Or we can do 15 minus 3 equals 12. So the height of our top figure is 12 millimeters. Notice how I had to use total length, width, and heights and partial length, width, and heights of the bottom prism to help myself solve for the missing length, width, and heights of the top prism.